Hey guys, EGK here, and welcome to the Terran Analysis Desk. Basically, I have this room behind me and this bed. Am I pointing to it? Yeah. So it's a floating bed, and basically I get to float around the internet and follow tournaments that are being played, and I get to analyze it in my comfy chair and desk. Well, you can't see the desk, but this is a Terran Analysis Desk. I kid you not. So, spoiler alert, and I'll put it in the title too, but spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the Vasacast Invitational yet, this episode is going to mainly be covering that. More specifically, we're going to be taking a look at the winner. Congrats, Vortix. He had a pretty rough time. He had to play versus. Oh, I'm trying to look it up right now. I know he had to play 3 TvZs today. No, not today. He had to play versus Select, and then he played versus. Oh, where is it? Sorry. Alright, so MMA, and then he played versus Jockshi. So, if you think about it, that's kind of like Select. He's like a Korean Terran. He plays in WCS NA, so he's like, yeah, he's good, but he's kind of like American, and so not that great. And then there's MMA. He's like a crazy good Terran player who migrated to Europe, which is arguably one of the better regions for like either Europe or KR. I think they're kind of equal. KR probably better because more pro gamers play on the latter, but EU's still up there. It has a bunch of Koreans. And then we have Jockshi, who made it super far into the IEM World Finals in Katowice. So we're going to be taking a look at these Terrans in order of rising magnitude of fearsomeness and how Vortix decides to deal with them, and I'm not going to say abuse, but utilize the advantages that have slowly appeared in this current metagame. I will say this, I think that TvZ is slightly more balanced towards Zerg right now, but I don't believe that is any fault of David Kim. I think it's more because the Terrans have had to adjust away from the Widowmine style that Innovation popularized earlier last year, and now, yeah, there's like no real standard thing to do, and there's just a lot of different options for TvZ, so it's not really cut and dry. There's a bunch of different ways you can play the matchup and end up winning. So there we go, and let's jump into the game here. It is, of course, Vortix versus Select. Now, this is an analysis, a post-analysis of the tournament, first of all, so there will be a bunch of spoiler alerts, but it's all for the sake of learning, so it's all good. I believe Vortix also played versus... Am I lagging? No, I think it's the Observer, or Caldor. This is Caldor's stream, by the way. So Vortix, he played on Frost versus MMA, and this is versus Select in the round of 16. He plays versus You know, I don't know if I have that right. It's Vortix versus MMA in the round of 8, then Vortix versus... Oh, he plays versus Stardust in the round of 4, so that's what I was missing. But Vortix still played a ton of ZVT, and of course, if you're a Terran player and you find out that you're going to be playing against Vortix the next day and he just played a TvZ, it is almost always in your advantage to watch what Vortix did to try to exploit any potential weaknesses that he might have in his macro play. But Vortix able to win this Vasacast tourney, taking home $2,500, and on top of that, playing a bunch of TvZ. He's really established himself as one of the few Zergs that have the ability to slay Koreans currently, which is pretty cool, seeing some foreigners up and coming. It's kind of like he swallowed up Lucifron. That's why Lucifron quote-unquote retired, and now he's like Lucifron plus Vortix, except it's all in Zerg, because only zerg can like transfuse Terran players into the zerg body. Alright, so enough rambling. Now that the openings have finally started, I feel like a commentator commentating this, but there really is nothing much to say. It is cross positions frost, so that means that the zerg, and I believe this is also a zerg favored map because of the fact that zerg can establish 4 bases relatively easily, and it's up to the Terran to either put on aggression, which is nigh impossible to do on cross positions frost, or to keep the zerg down to 4 bases and slowly chip away and starve the zerg player out. Those are really the only 2 game plans that are possible on cross positions frost because of the rush distance and the watchtower visions on each side of the map. If whoever holds that, those are important choke points. These little areas over here, not so important because of the cross positions. They could be good counterattack paths if the Terran decides to take his base here. But the Terran could also just as easily take the 3rd base here, and then there's those. But really, these 2 paths are just so far away that you should be able to see it coming if you hold the watchtower on your side of the map. Or not, you shouldn't be able to see it coming, but if you hold the watchtower, then they can't take any shortcuts. Like through this area, they have to go all the way around to avoid the watchtower. So counterattacks aren't really the best on this map. Cross positions kind of forces out a macro game. And interesting how MMA is splitting up both of his gas. He's taking his second, or no, not MMA, Select. We're not at MMA yet. Select, pretty cool play by him. He's taking his natural gas, and he's taking his main gas, so he's splitting it up to try to trick Vortix, kind of pulling a zerg on the zerg. Now, something I just want to go over really quickly, that's why I paused the game, is that Vortix is going for, he did a gasless expand. It's a pretty standard way to play on this map because it is not a great Reaper map, so you don't need that fast speed to really shut down any Reaper harass. You don't really have to worry about 3 Reapers as well because mainly the rush distance, especially on cross positions, is going to be pretty arduous, and you're going to have another round of queens out pretty soon, and the queens can reinforce each other. There's only one area into the natural, and that's through the natural, like the main. There's only one way into the natural right there. So one queen can sit there, and then there's just 2 ways into the main, and it's just really easy to defend. So going for a gasless opener and getting out a bunch of queens is really pretty safe on this map, and I would also say pretty standard because you can just pretty much get away with it. There's nothing a Terran can really do. And we see Vortix, he's taking his 3rd base at this position, and then he's going to take his 4th base over here, or he can take his 3rd base over here and then his 4th base over here. I don't think it really matters on cross position spots, and I guess instead of saying cross positions, just assume that everything I say is going to be based on the fact that it is cross positions. So I don't think that this base has any other advantage than this base. I mean, you can have your Hellions over here, but Vortix, he's already gotten his Overlords spread out very well. If we take a look at the minimap, he has the Watchtowers, and then he has Overlords right outside of the Watchtowers, and then he has another Overlord to cover that area. So he has gotten the map down under control fairly well. And taking a look at Select's build, it looks like he is going for a Widowmine drop. It's kind of unusual. It's just Select's special build that he's bringing to the table this game. Oh, and it appears that Select actually, he didn't make any Hellions, and these are his Widowmines, so this is going to be his harass. And Select is favoring to take the path of economic damage rather than map control and indirect damage, because you normally get the Hellion Force to deny the creep, and since Vortix is going a gasless queen expand or a gasless expand, he's going to have a lot of queens, and he's going to be able to really push that creep out very far on the map. And if he can get to this watchtower with creep, like on both sides, then that's just a really ideal position for a Zerg. That gives him almost complete map control because the main pathway is going to be covered completely with creep, and there's not going to be any way that the Terran player can really harass or attack into the bases. So Select, he's doing a Widowmine drop instead of a Hellion drop or a Hellion harass. I kind of like that by him, but Vortix, very smartly, he's getting Overlord speed because this map is difficult to scout on. There is this area where the Overlord can come in and that area, and so if you have Marines positioned correctly, which Select kind of did, yeah, he did. He didn't kind of did. He 100% did. Then on this map, you won't be able to scout the entire base with a slow Overlord. So not normally, but it is kind of common to get Overlord speed on this map just because at the very back of the main, you can hide tech buildings or additional Raxes fairly easily, and the Overlord won't reach it in time without speed if you have Marines positioned well. And then we see Select, he's going to be getting a Viking out. I don't necessarily like the Viking that too much on this map, especially since Vortix got Overlord speed. This Viking, it's really just here to clear out all the Overlords, but Overlord speed makes the Overlords 10 times harder to kill. And it looks like Vortix, since his Overlord was able to scout this Widowmine drop, it's right there on the map, I don't think it's going to do any damage. That's one of the downfalls to doing a build like this. It really needs to go unscouted to be able to do any damage. Otherwise, you're just going to force 3 Spore Crawlers and the Widowmines will be rendered useless. So both of these players are setting themselves up for a late game scenario. As we can see, Vortix, he has quite a few active creep tumors going. He's just started speed. He has been extremely greedy, but that's because he saw that Select was going for 14 CC, so he adjusted his build for it. And he was planning on using just his queens to deal with the Hellion harass, but since Select didn't even get Hellions and got Widowmines, it worked out even better in Vortix's favor of being super greedy. But of course it also is cross position, so that also plays into his favor as well. If you look on the the production tab, he's getting his Spire and his speed's still researching. That's how greedy Vortix is. He really wanted to get a bunch of queens out and not delay his tech or economy. The only thing he did was delay his speed, and he made a couple roaches to help defend against possible Hellions. That was really bad by Select losing that Viking. There's he's not even on 3 bases, and he shouldn't have lost that Viking. Just a bad mistake. And this Widowmine drop, it really hasn't done anything. I mean, he did that right in front of Vortix, so not a great idea doing that right in front of a Zerg, especially since the Zerg also has complete map vision of wherever this medevac is coming from as well. And that's pretty normal on this map, especially for this kind of level of caliber of players. And Vortix really does have to bring his A game if he wants to take home this finals in first place. Alright, so this Widowmine drop by Select, I like the idea of it, but just the map itself and yeah, cross positions on this map, it just allows the medevac to pretty much be scouted. And even if it doesn't get scouted, Widowmine drops don't really do that much damage versus Zerg, because all the Zerg has to do is sacrifice a Zergling or just leave a drone and just run his units away and he'll be fine. So it did force out some spores, but overall I don't think it was worth it for Select. And he would really have to be capitalizing on Vortix being really bad to get more than 1 drone kill really per Widowmine. But I do like what he's doing here. He's using the Widowmine as a kind of defense at the watchtower because he recognizes how important it is to control these watchtowers. So having a Widowmine over here, that's good by him. And he also did he did get a Viking out after the Widowmine dropped, so he was just utilizing the starport as much as possible. So even though the build didn't work out too well, so I still overall think Select's build is a decently solid build. And now he has, ooh, this is awful. That was horrible by Select. First he stimmed past his medvacs. He doesn't have combat shields, and he just caught himself very far out of position trying to retake the watchtower when he had no vision of it, and to try to save that Widow Mine. So this is almost a game ender here. Losing. Oh, back it up a bit. Let's see how many units he lost. But this 2 medevac pressure normally is supposed to stay alive. You don't want to lose any units. Okay, so it's just 1 medevac. So with 1 medevac, Select's build obviously is a very, very different build. It's most likely personally crafted by himself, so we're gonna have to kind of examine what kind of timings he uses. So like he has this 1 medevac out here, and his 2nd and 3rd medevac are coming across the map with additional units. And what he does is he stims these marines past any of his reinforcements help, and then he goes into the vision of the watchtower without having the vision of the watchtower. So he's really going in blindly here, and as a result, we're gonna see this happen. Okay, he lost like six marines to maybe 1 or 2 banelings, and that's not a trade you ever want to take as a Terran player. And it could have easily been avoided by picking his units up into the medevac, but like Select just stemmed way too far away from his medevac support, and now as a result, he could have like traded units better or even cleared some creep, but he's gonna have to go home now because his pressure has been instantly cleaned up. But it's not the end of the world for Select. He does have, oh god, he's kind of falling behind on his macro. He's up 50 supply. Normally you only want to be up like a maximum of about 20 supply. These Widow Mines not doing a bad job, but since they are here without any reinforcements, they're going to be cleaned up by overseers. So I wouldn't personally like these Widow Mines over here. They are good to zone out this area of the map, and that's what Select is using them for, but it's also very important to increase your Widow Mine count so that you have a critical mass to actually win fights. And if they're getting cleaned up like this and only picking off like a Mutalisk or 2 and then not being used again, it's not really worth it because your Widow Mine production can get bottlenecked very, very easily. Oh my god. And Select making a very, very noob mistake against a normal Mutalisk player, and Select should have seen it because he saw the Zerglings and Banelings. He also saw a bunch of Queens throughout the game. He saw a fast 4th base going up, so it could either be a Roach Bane play because he did make a few Roaches, but if he also even had the Watchtower, so he could very clearly see like how far Vortex's creep was out on the map. So it wouldn't really be hard to go by process of elimination to assume that Vortex is doing a very standard Mutalisk Baneling build, and against that you want to have a turret down at each base. You want to start it at 10 minutes and 30 seconds. Against super fast Mutalisks on 2 bases, where the Zerg player takes a delayed third at about 8 to 9 minutes, you want your turret, you want to have like 2 turrets or 1 turret in each of your mineral lines, and then another turret or 2 around your production facilities, depending on the map, because the very fast Mutalisks will hit at 10 minutes into the game, so you need to have your turrets up, I guess, minus 25 seconds, so you have to start your turrets by about 9 minutes and 30 seconds. So this is like a pretty standard Mutalisk timing, and it should not do any damage, but it's killing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It killed 5 workers and forced away mining time from Select. And now he builds his turrets. So that was a very good trade by Vortix, and like Just not having a turret there really hurt Select. So these two mistakes, losing a Marine force there for free, essentially, and losing a bunch of workers to these Mutalisks over here, means that Vortix is now in a super good position. Select has no option whatsoever to do any kind of harassment on this kind of map and in this kind of situation, because he has lost any economic lead he might have had from the fast 3 command centers. He's lost any map control because he lost some of his army. So with that in mind, I think Vortix is actually just going to go for a bust here. We can see a bunch of units streaming down. Yeah, Select kind of has some Widow Mines randomly placed. They're not in the best defensive position, but at least they are burrowed and kind of pre-spread out, and he's able to get Vortix to fight into it. Unfortunately, he doesn't get any good Widow Mine hits off, and that's mostly because he didn't target fire the Widow Mines onto the Banelings. It's, of course, extremely difficult to do, but if you want to beat top-level players, then you have to do the extremely difficult things that not a lot of other people want to do. And as a result of not being able to get any good Widow Mine shots off, Select's army is just gonna roll over and die here. And this is also in part, like, the only reason Vortix did this also was because Select lost all of those advantages. He lost his economic advantage, he lost his army advantage, and his map control advantage. So this attack was very good by Vortix. He took a very cost-efficient trade. Also, Select has lost 13 Widow Mines this entire game, and I don't think he's ever had his Widow Mine count above, like, 5, because if you remember, he opened up with the Widow Mine drop. He lost 1 at the Watchtower. He lost another 2 got picked off over here in between these 2 Watchtowers, and then he lost another. There were, like, I think, like, 3 or 4 more that were buried. And then 2 more that came, and then they died before they even got to be buried. So really, Select has been fighting this entire game, like every single battle, with less than 5 Widow Mines, and the Widow Mines being the main source of splash damage, that is not a good position you want to be in. And I don't even think Select has any medevacs anymore either. Okay, so he has 2 that he's using to drop. This normally is good if you're in an even or ahead position in this game, because like I said before, it's really easy for the Zerg player to take 4 bases, and creeping up to this Watchtower over here means that there's not really going to be any solid attack path for the Terran player to attack the Zerg into. So it essentially forces a macro game in which the Zerg player gets hive tech and makes all these very scary units, and the Terran player is forced to out-expand and basically just have a better economy than the Zerg player and starve the Zerg out. And that's kind of what we see here. Select denying the 5th base. That's very important because it prevents like a Broodlord switch after Ultralisks, and it also prevents like getting a lot of infestors, and just that gas is very important because hive tech does consume the most amount of gas. So if you want to have any chance of being able to trade cost efficiently and replenishing faster than the Zerg player, then you want to. Okay, those were good Widow Mine shots, but there's just a lot of Banelings, and he didn't even have 2 of his Widow Mines burrowed, so even though he's able to clean it up, the Widow Mine count does get reset again, so Select is back down to like less than 5 Widow Mines, which he has been under the entire game, and that's not good for him. And here comes the bigger Mutalisk flock. Vortix is doing a great job doing a Mutalisk harass. It would either have to be here towards the natural or going this way into the 3rd base. And I think Vortix is going this way because it flies over the direction of the 4th base. So if Select did have a 4th base, which he should have now instead of just starting it, he would be able to do a little bit of harassment at the 4th base, then bounce over to the natural. Or if there's no 4th base there, you can just bounce straight to the natural. And Select had no vision of it. He didn't have a sensor tower. He didn't have any spotter marines to check the Mutalisk harass. And as a result, his units are caught completely out of position. He was rallying to this Watchtower. It's a very important position to have because it allows you to take a 5th base over here, deny potential Zerg bases over here, and also establish a forward rally point so that you can clear a creep and take this watchtower. And if you can take this watchtower as a Terran player, you can essentially apply pressure to this base, and this base. And if you have this watchtower, you already have this watchtower, so you can apply pressure to that base as well. So that's really how you need to play out this map if you want to deny the 5th bases of the Zerg player. But since Select is in such a disadvantage, he's been getting his Widowmine count reset on a almost regular interval by Vortix. Vortix doing a great job at that, by the way, and keeping all his Mutalisks alive and doing a good amount of harass for as little damage as possible. Is really putting Vortex in a powerful position, and Vortex, like, by now Select should have a 4th base up. He should be starting +3/+3, unless he already has it, which I highly doubt because I didn't see it on the minimap and it's only 17 minutes in. So it should have been researching by now, but I don't think it's even researching. And he's also making a siege tank, which is kind of not the best unit because they only deal with banelings and not Mutalisks. Okay, now he's making a Thor, so it was probably a misclick. I'd really like to see Select's upgrades though, because I kind of doubt that they are at 3-3. And this game, now that Vortex has he has 4 bases, he's getting his hive, he can take this 5th base kinda freely too. Yeah, okay, Select didn't even have 3-3. So, oh my god. This is what a battle looks like when you don't have enough splash to deal with the banelings. And that's the result of Vortex doing a great job at keeping Select's Widowmine count very low. And this is pretty much over. So, right off the bat, the first game we have of TvZ today is Vortex in a pretty showing a pretty dominant game and showing that he seems to be very, very comfortable with this matchup on this map in particular. And once again, I'm just going to say that this map, I think, is kind of more Zerg favored than Terran, especially if you get cross positions. Vortex had the optimal position to be able to take 4 bases relatively easily and establish a hive tech and go into a macro game. So, now we're going to see game 2. Alright, so game 2, it's going to be on Habitation Station. And it looks like Select is going for a 14 command center again. Very, very greedy by him, especially on the low ground. I guess he just doesn't think Vortex is going to cheese him or anything. Because if Vortex went for a fast pool, then Select would be very, very far behind and would most likely have to cancel his command center. On this map, Habitation Station, it is a better map to get speedlings on because Hellion Harass can be a big pain. There are a couple main attack paths, and there's a couple main attack paths, and that's good for the Zerg player because if you get a lot of speedlings, it allows you to set up a potential counter flank against the Hellions if they're going in and darting to try to kill some creep tumors. So that's one of the reasons why speed is good. And another reason, it's a short rush distance as well. So if Select is doing any shenanigans, such as a proxy 2-racks, then fast speed is also an optimal build for shutting it down. Of course, Vortex could also have gone for a gasless expand because it is not the best Reaper map. You can shut down Reapers fairly easily, and honestly, it's really difficult to get into the main base and even survive. And okay, so the reason why Vortex got the gas was not for speed, but it was for Roach Warren. Cool. He's already mixing it up. Oh god, I don't know if Select's even scouted yet. I'm gonna go back and we're just gonna look at the pay attention to the mini map. Okay, hopefully, nope, that's for the barracks. But I actually don't think Select even scouts, and that's a very, very big mistake. Even if you do a Reaper expand, you should definitely scout the gas count and then check again at about 5 minutes to 5:20 and check to see if the spawning pool is jiggling. Because if it's jiggling, then that means that speed has been, or the gas has been put into speed, and it's going to be a speedling opener. But if it's not jiggling, then that means there's probably a roach warren somewhere, and the gas is going to be used for that. Oh my, okay, there's his scout, but it's kind of late. So at least Select is scouting, that's good. It is late though. You do want to have your SCV in by 4 minutes. Select kind of sent his out slightly later, but he does barely get in. And he's, okay, he does see a gas. He does see that about 80-ish, almost 100 has been mined. He does not stay though, in order to like see if more gas is being mined or not, and this SCV is shut down very, very easily. So Vortix strategy has gone roughly unscouted, and it's up to Select now to be able to deal with this with as little scouting information as possible. And I kind of don't think this is going to end very well for him. He did go CC first, so he's going to be able to have a couple Marines, and he's going to be able to wall off at his natural. And if he can wall off his natural and pull SCVs to keep the bunker alive long enough, so and then like micro hit the SCVs so that the roaches don't kill too many of them, then he might be able to even this game out. But if he's not able to do that, and he's walling it off in preparation for a speedling timing, because possible you start speed with 100 gas and it usually finishes around 6 minutes. Sorry for the people with that phobia or disorder. I just did that. Okay, back to the roaches. So Select is completely blindsided here. He has no idea this is coming. He should make a tech. Okay, there's a tech lab. He didn't wall off at his main because he wanted to wall off at his natural because of the speedling timing. And he doesn't even have Hellions out. So this is going to be unscouted up until the point that these roaches are at Select's base, which is very, very scary. So the best possible reaction that Select could have had is to have played this on ladder and lost to it going for a 14cc build, and then IDing the time, then to ID the timing. So ID that roaches would, like, if Vortix was to do this attack, then the roaches would come at this time before the Hellions are able to scout, and to hide an SCV somewhere on the map so that he could, or even send his SCV earlier to check for gas and then resend it in to maybe recheck if there's any. Oh, but he might not even have been able to get in. That's true. So I think really Vortix just had a build order counter, and Select is completely caught off guard here. And this bunker, he already gets a full shot off with the roaches, which is not good. And he's making a Marine as well. So Select was just caught with his pants down. So very, very good play by Vortix, mixing in these cheesy strats so that he can be unpredictable. And like, this doesn't necessarily seem like it would be tailored toward a player such as Select. It seems to be more map dependent and abusing the fact that if you go 14cc, then he won't be able to scout this kind of an attack, and if you can't scout this attack, then it's likely going to do a lot of damage, in which it would be game-ending damage like we see here. So Vortix very, very smartly playing the map. I like. And so yeah, he's going to be able to take this series 2-0. He showed a very strong macro game on cross positions Frost in the first game, and this game he did a very powerful cheese that was able to take down Select relatively quickly and abuse the fact that Select did a 14cc build. And if Vortix saw a Reaper expand, which is one of the best ways to scout this kind of attack coming. Then he could have just went into Speedlings and then done a different all-in or played a macro game or even something else. So this is by no means an all-in, and by all means a reaction to seeing Select going 14cc on this map. And this is a reason why you almost always see a Reaper expand as well, to scout for these kinds of timings, which can be extremely powerful on two-player maps, in which you can scout the opponent and put up a reaction quickly enough, like make these kinds of split-second reactions in time because of the small map distance, because of the small map and because of the small rush distance. Alright, so the next part, this is part 1 and is Vortix versus Select. The next part of this episode is going to be Vortix versus MMA, so stay tuned while I